Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome, everybody, to another episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And, you know, the opening that I do is very important to me. And so I like to populate the show with people who are doing exactly that. They're living their best life. And it wasn't necessarily always so for everybody. There's a point in time that we have to make a decision on what we're going to do. And our guest today is one of those. She is a visionary. She's a world leader. She's been given some awards, and she's done some really cool things. And I want to welcome Tiffany May Young Chan to the show today.
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
How are you?
I'm great, and thank you for the generous introduction. It's lovely to be here with you.
Well, you are one of those people. You are a visionary, and you're working with leaders around the globe who are interested in a new way of leading, a new way of being, a much more grounded, forward-thinking way, and correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, a forward-thinking way rather than the old paradigm that a lot of people have used over time. They have a boss that they emulate, and it kind of goes generation to generation, but there needs to be a change in all of that, and you are working diligently to do that. How did it all begin for you?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Kevin, I started my career pretty conventionally. You know, I have a bachelor's in political science, got my MBA at a university, was in policy, worked in DC a lot, and then ended up at an organization called the World Economic Forum. You may have heard of it.
Yep.
It's largely known for its network of leaders gathering together in a small Swiss town called Davos and making decisions about the world. And quite frankly, I was living a pretty damn good life from a outward perspective, but I also knew that something was missing. I was looking around and I was like, I want a leader who not only is forward thinking, but also embodies this heart-led energy, right? Who is able to speak of their emotions, but then also clarify for me, really galvanize me with all of my being, not just my head, but with my body and my heart. And I was really looking around these folks who were kind of like thinking and being from the head up. And it wasn't enough for me, quite frankly. And I knew that there was something more, but I didn't necessarily have language for it. And I was looking for examples of how to be and do that in the world. And I thought that, okay, I guess maybe I'm just missing something. Maybe it's just me. You know, maybe I've just got a couple of like screws loose in my head. And what happened was that I was awarded a fellowship. I served as a global leadership fellow at the forum. My fellowship ended. I ended up working and living in Johannesburg, setting up a series of universities around the continent. And it was during that time that I was on a phone call with my mom. And my mom was like, hey, you know, have you found a church yet? You know, have you found a place that you can call home? And I'm just thinking and just rolling my eyes and saying like, Ma, like do you not know who I am and what I'm doing? Like I'm doing good things in the world, you know, like I'm schmoozing with the who's who. I'm creating universities. I'm creating education, you know, or across the continent. I'm doing big things. But she was really concerned about my spiritual foundation, you know, really to have a place where I was attending to my heart and where I was allowing myself to be filled. And I was thinking, oh, you know, I'll just do that when I have enough time. I'll just do that on the weekends, or I'll like achieve a certain level in my particular career, achieve a level of like status, so to speak. And then I'll attend to those bigger questions that I know are important. I mean, obviously they're important, but like I'm doing big things, right? And so what ended up happening was that I was a pedestrian crossing the road, and I was recalling the conversation that I had had with my mom. And I just prayed a prayer that I had never prayed before. And all I said was, God, I want to be able to know you. I just want to be able to talk to you like you're my friend. Didn't think anything of it at all. Light turns green, pedestrian crossing the road, walk, 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 walk. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see a white car rotating through the air coming towards me.
Oh my.
And my first reaction was like, oh, well, that's interesting. My second reaction was like, maybe I should do something about this. And it's interesting because I relate to it. I call it my Matrix moment, those Matrix movies
Yep. Yep.
where it just felt like time and space just slowed down. And it was almost as if like I could see the car coming and either like I was pushed back, pulled back, whatever. I don't necessarily really know. I'm still starting to make sense of it. But whatever happened was that the car moved past me. I wasn't physically hurt, but I could feel the energetic impact of it. Ended up hitting a woman who was to my left. She thankfully is still alive, but she had like pretty severe injuries. And I started to crumble, as a result. I think that anyone who has those encounters of like kind of like seeing your life sort of like flash by you, sort of like has those sort of like wake up moments. For me, those moments had been coming towards me, but it was almost as if I wasn't paying attention or I wasn't ready to be able to hear the message. But that car flying through the air certainly caught my attention. And what had happened was because I didn't necessarily have a very strong grounding, like it was almost as if I was building these castles in the sky. Like from an external perspective, my resume was looking spectacular. I was interacting with all these fancy people. I was doing these social impact projects that from was being praised for, but because I didn't have like a strong foundation, a spiritual foundation from which to build from, frankly, I started to crumble. And so I had a lot of arrogance as it related to like my cognitive abilities. Like I'm a pretty sharp person. I just get things really fast. But I started to disintegrate. Like my ability to like make decisions, critical thinking skills, it started to get super muddy. My I was a jet setter, hopping on a plane left and right, no big deal. And then all of a sudden, like I was afraid of the dark. I couldn't cross the street. I was afraid of the world. And it was this really shock to the system because I had based my entire personality, my entire sense of worth and well being on my credentials, where I went to school, who I was affiliated with, the organization, the title on my business card. And when all of those things start to disappear and my ability to orient to the world in a traditional fashion started to dissolve, I didn't know who I was anymore. And that was devastating.
Oh well, you had it all going on, girl. You knew what you were doing, and you know where you were going, and you were doing all of that. But a moment came,
A
and
moment
I
came.
I, I think I think it bears to be said that when you have a direct conversation with the divine and you ask him for something, you're liable to get it. But it might not exactly be in the form or manner in which you would like and prefer it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I do believe in cause and effect. And I do believe that this was an answered prayer. It was not what I wanted, but it sure heck of a lot was what I needed. And I needed to come back to my true sense of self. I needed a deeper connection with divine. And I needed to feel that sense of true love, not only on behalf of myself, but also true love of divine within myself. And the only way, quite frankly, that I was going to get there was if everything was pulled underneath me. Like the rug was literally pulled underneath me and I had nothing else to focus on but me and my relationship to spirit.
That is a incredible story. How long did it take you? And what did it was it an instantaneous change, or was it something that you recognized that you needed to go learn about and to really work in regards to your spirituality to
Yeah.
come up with some answers?
I was reluctant as all heck. I was so reluctant. And I approached it in the way that I only knew how. So I basically took charge and took control, and I said to God, "Okay, you got my attention, and I will give you 3 months because anything can be solved in a quarter, and I'm going to project manage my spirituality. And I'm going to read these books, I'm going to listen to these podcasts, and I'm just going to do it just enough that I know you just enough that I can go and revert back to my old lifestyle, because my old lifestyle was pretty damn good. And I just want to get this thingamajiggy just to a good enough place where I want to go back." But as you know, Kevin, with your story, with the guests that you have on, once you say yes, once you are genuinely willing to allow yourself to be transformed, there's no going back. There's only going forward and through. And in my circumstance, as my heart opened, as I allowed myself to deepen and have these encounters, then all of a sudden I couldn't stop. It was almost as if like the supernatural world opened up to me. My experience of love was so expansive and so visceral that I couldn't deny that this was actually more real than the quote unquote reality that we were living in. And so that's been my pursuit for the past 9 years, is really to um, honor the truth, honor the experience that I continue to have to this day, and allow myself to orient it so that I may create a pathway for others, that they may have the courage to follow their truth and their divine purpose here on earth.
Everybody, in my opinion, everybody at one point or another says, why am I here, and what am I supposed to be
Sure.
doing, and
Hmm.
there's got to be more. It was at Thanksgiving, and we were having a discussion about life after death, and the answers that I got were just totally not not real enough for me to say, "Oh yeah, that's it." It was like, no, there's got to be more. There's got to be. Why are we here? What are we here to do? There just has to be more. So when you start going down that path, like I went, start going down that path,
Hmm.
you're right. Going back to the way you were now seemed empty and useless. So at least it was for me. How about for you?
Completely hollow. And,
Yeah.
and, and quite frankly, Kevin, even though I don't want to admit it, I was kind of bored beforehand, right? Like that sense of, okay, so I wanted to reach the pinnacle, working at this fancy organization, literally with the leaders of the world. And yet I felt like a hollowness. And there was a part of me that was just like, there's got to be more here, but maybe it's just me. And I thought the issue was me. But the reality is that there's such a deepened connection that spirit wants to have with us. There's a new way of living and breathing and being in the world that is so full of vitality and life that is possible, but you have to be receptive to be open to it. And I think that there's no, you know um, I think that as long as you're sincere in your request, I didn't know what I was doing when I was praying that prayer, but at least that sincerity of that request and the willingness to continue to say yes to that transformation is ultimately the key to that passage.
The way I look at it is that you have got guides and angels and people on the other side who are interested in your development, and so that you can achieve what it is that you came here to do. And when you open it up and say, okay, feed me, I'm ready, and they're like, okay, now we got permission, now we can go do this thing that we've always wanted to do, but we
Exactly.
can't do it without her permission. Now we've got it, let's map it out and see what we can make
Let's
happen.
go. Let's go. And you're on a rocket ship.
You are. You are. And you have done extraordinarily well.
Thank
You've
you.
made the transition
I
from
have.
where you were to where you are now. Tell us about what you are doing now that is a lot deeper and designed to help humanity.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a spiritual advisor to leaders. So I'm actually going back to my old world, going back to the people that I used to work with, but in a completely different way. The fact of the matter is that um, there are conscious leaders. There are those who are leading in the world that know that there's something more and that are willing to orient and align towards that, but they feel very alone. And it can be very isolating to feel like, oh, there's no one else that I can talk to. There's probably, if I say that I believe in energy or that I'm like opening up to the supernatural, that I'm going to lose credibility. And I think one of the best things that I do by, going on platforms like this is actually giving people affirmation and validation that yes, you can be rational, intelligent, coherent, make sound, wise decisions, and be open to the unseen realm. And it doesn't need to be an either or, it's actually a both and. And that spirit is inviting us to be able to merge those two worlds. And so part of the way that I serve is actually by working with leaders to teach them how to access God, spirit, source more consistently. I feel in my experience, everyone is naturally connected to source. We just haven't necessarily trusted the ways that spirit is speaking to us. So I teach leaders how to be able to listen more deeply, not only to their intuition, but to the ways where source is guiding us on a daily basis. And then really helping them be able to translate that to action. So, okay, so you've been personally transformed. You hear this from source. You feel the love and embodiment. How are you going to bring this out to your organization? How are you actually going to bring these values out to your team? How do we actually operationalize this so that not only is this integrated into your everyday, but through the systems that we're interacting with, so that not only are you personally benefiting, but those whom you lead also feel the resonance of that light and that love. So it really comes down to that expansion and also the brass tacks of like, how does this look like in your everyday? I have been hosting workshops at large organizations, large tech organizations in particular, that you would recognize, name brand organizations that are really interested in being able to integrate energy and consciousness into the workplace. So this whole idea of, oh, this is something that I just keep under the covers. This is something that I just do on the weekends. This is just something that I do for fun. Those times are long past, because not only am I being able to support those leaders, but we're actually bringing that to scale now.
And the cool thing is, and we need to take a break in a second, but the cool thing is that you can do exactly what you're doing without it appearing like you're wearing a muumuu with half of stars and moons and a pointed hat, and
Yeah,
that you're all woo woo. It is actually grounded in science, and it is grounded
it's physics.
in physics and a way to be, and it can change everything, and you don't have to go off into some esoteric world or really out there. You can make it happen in your day-to-day life. I talk to musicians all the time. I talk to authors. They will tell me that their work that they're doing, they don't know where it came from. It was divinely inspired.
Absolutely.
And that's what they do, because they've opened the channel. Unfortunately, business leaders, when they're sitting around having a scotch on a Friday night and talking to other business leaders, they don't necessarily go there and want to talk about those sorts of things. But you can do it kind of like you're doing it, kind of undercover. But we're going to talk about
Sure.
more about that when we come back. We're talking with Tiffany Chan, or it's actually Tiffany May Young Chan, and you can go to her website, which is TiffanyMChan.com, and find out all about her. And oh, by the way, you can work with her. So we'll be right back after this real quick break.
The have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
See, that didn't take long at all. My name is Kevin McDonald. You're listening to Positive Talk right here on the Brushwood Media Network. We've got a wonderful guest for you today, and she is, when I developed this show, when I thought about how I wanted to present the world in a different way, you are the exact, Tiffany, you are the exact person that I wanted to have here, because it not only are you teaching leaders how to be better leaders, but the main thing is that you're teaching them how to lead their organization and be successful for everybody. Because Bruce Springsteen once said, nobody wins unless everybody wins.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to operate a company, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also believe that in the same way that hurt people, I do believe that healed people heal people.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Right. And so when I work with leaders individually, yes, you are doing it in service of being a clear channel for God, Spirit, Source. Yes, you are doing it so that you can feel cool and, see neat things and to be able to allow yourself to fall into love. But really, I work with leaders primarily because they're oriented towards service. In my definition of a leader, you are the embodiment of love so that you allow other people to come into their love.
That's a bumper sticker right there.
Oh, and I really feel that, leaders, a lot of leaders are unconsciously perpetuating their patterns. And listen, we all have them, right? You had them, I have them, we all have them. We all have generational trauma, intergenerational patterns, things that we've either come in this life with from past lives or that we've occurred in the womb. And to the degree that we bring conscious awareness to these bruises and that we can be able to heal through them, we have a less likelihood of our splatter affecting other people. And when you're a leader who's operating with a team of hundreds of people, sometimes thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, that splatter can have detrimental effects and quite frankly can undermine the very thing that you're seeking to change. So, for example, if you have difficulty receiving feedback, right? And you want your team and organization to be able to continually improve, well, it's going to be difficult because you're perpetuating those patterns energetically, but then also through your thoughts, words, and behaviors to your team and your organization. So what I do with folks is really, for one, I call it the do it for you model, where I, channel source to be able to heal these leaders directly. And then I move to a do it with you. So I teach these leaders how to do it themselves. And ultimately, I want them to DIY it, do it yourself so that you might be able to teach others. I really believe in the model of empowerment. I tell people, listen, I'm not your guru. I don't want you to be dependent on me. Really, this is allowing yourself to remind yourself of your divine connection and the ways in which you yourself are embodiment of love. So if I can be able to allow you to give you spaciousness to remember that, therefore you will be able to carry that in your day to day.
I have to remind you of something and remind our audience of something. That 9 years ago, you were a jet setter, as you were, and you flew around. And now in the last minute and a half, you've talked about past lives, you've talked about energy, you've talked about channeling. You have really had a monumental change in who you are as a person over the last 9 years, so that you can now turn around and give that knowledge to other people who I think I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were telling me that this is a big deal. She was a psychic medium and she was saying this movement is a big deal because everybody really wants. We don't have any idea how many people are really out there that are scared to go deeply into it, that really want to change who they are, find out what it's all about, to feel divine love, to feel like you're part of something better and greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people that are really interested in that, but they won't say it.
Yeah.
And they don't have the resource to be able to figure it out. I want to spend some time and give our audience some resources that you found over the course of time to be able to make that switch and to understand who you really are.
Well, one of my teachers is Bryn DePel. She is excellent and an exquisite practitioner, and she helped me to learn how to access the Akashic records. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Akashic records.
Of course.
Okay. For those who may be unfamiliar, the Akashic records, it goes by many names. It has been referenced in every spiritual tradition. In the Christian tradition, in the Bible, it's known as the Book of Life. In physics, we refer to it as the quantum field. Think of it like an energetic imprint. So much in the same way that, so let me back up a couple paces. So the definition of the Akashic field or the quantum field is every thought, word, action, deed, event, or potentiality that has ever or will ever occur across all time and space. So taking a deep breath in, because that was a lot.
And if in case you want to go back and listen to this again, I'm going to encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
Because what Tiffany's talking about is a lot.
It is a lot. And it's also our birthright. You know, we're all accessing the Akashic field. We all sense and know it to be true. The way that I like to explain is that everything's energy, right? Like from a physics perspective, we know this to be true. The desk that I'm sitting at, the chair that you're sitting on, it's actually energy that is moving. So we know it from like a concrete physical perspective. What we haven't yet given enough attention to is that our thoughts are also energy, as well as our emotions. As we begin to put more like action around that, as we begin to put more energy into those thoughts and emotions become to formulate shape, and then they become reality. And so that's how something comes into nothing. That's how the unseen realm comes into form. And so it is possible to sense into what is not only happening right now, but also what possibly may happen contingent upon the actions that you take and the thought forms that you have. And not only can you go forward into the future, you can also go into the past. So the Akashic record has everything that has been from all times, places, dimensions, and all levels of consciousness. So therefore, you are able to access past lives. You are able to access what happened when you were in utero. And because of that, because you have access to everything, you're able to get to the root of the issue. So when I talk about healing, when we use the example of, oh, I actually have difficulty receiving feedback, perhaps that might be because you received criticism, as a child, or it might be an experience that you had in a past life where you were, unfairly treated. We don't know necessarily the cause of that, but because we have access to the records, we're actually able to go to the root of the issue. And kind of like gardening, you pull out those weeds and you feel an increased sense of spaciousness in this current reality, in this way of being. And because of that, you're offering that healing onto others. So as we heal ourselves, we offer that energetically to those that we encounter.
I hope you got that all, everybody, because that was really good and really important. Now, what I want to do now is I'm going to take a little bit of a break so
Sure.
that, and this is what I want you to do, unless you're driving, I'd like you to go get a pen and a piece of paper. And I want you to write what we're going to be talking about down, because if you are interested in leading a better life for yourself, then you're going to not remember everything that we're going to say. So therefore, write it down. And then that way you can refer to it and then put an action plan together. If you're of a business mind like Tiffany is, put an action plan together, and you can put it, and you can make it all work. But I'm going to take a quick break, go get a piece of paper and pencil, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Positive Talk on the Brushwood Media Network.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
Everybody, my name is Kevin McDonald, and we have a tremendous guest for you today. And this is the type of individual that I always love to have here, because they can teach us so much through her own life experience, which was all designed to put her in this place. And she did it, in my humble opinion, she did it to herself before she even got here. And she established a contract of, this is how I want to contribute to the world, and this is what it's going to take. And then every experience and every thought and every movement through her life has led to this moment, and she is by no means done. We are all a work in progress, and we're all going to continue until that day that we get to go home. And I'm looking forward to that day, kinda, because I got too much to do here. But Tiffany, welcome back. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, this has been a delight.
And so let's continue with that. I asked people to get a piece of paper and a pencil. Now, what happened for me, just I'll preface it by telling you real quickly. I had a friend who was a metaphysical type person, and we were talking about metaphysics and energy and stuff. And he said, well, I want you to go to a metaphysical bookstore and buy the first book that speaks to you. And I said, what speaks to me? I'm not quite exactly sure what you're saying here. And he said, trust me, there will be a book, there will be something that reaches to you, and it'll reach into your heart. And then I want you to buy that book, and then I want you to read it. Turns out that book was called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And he's passed now, but I had the good fortune of being able to interview him. And it was about our life between lives, what we do on the other side when we're home, our soul guides, our Akashic records, all of the things that we get to do over there. And then we develop a game plan of what we would like to accomplish in this life. And then we put it together, and we meet a bunch of people, and we all come up with a game plan. It's very in-depth and very exciting. And at least in my frame of reference, how does that resonate with you?
We all have a divine plan, a divine blueprint of the major lessons that we're here to learn. as well as how we're going to serve and the people that we're in relationship with to be able to learn those lessons and then also to accomplish those particular goals. I'm pretty sure you and I have had a soul contract, Kevin,
I think so.
right? I can feel the energetic resonance within that. The depth and the ease in which we're, being on this session together. And I would just invite folks, when you feel the depth of resonance, like sometimes you meet someone and you're like, hey, have I met you before? And you kind of like compare notes. Like, did we go to university together? Did you go to this, soccer team or whatever? And nothing's matching up, but you kind of like feel like you've known each other from maybe like childhood or like back in the day. I would venture to say that's probably a past life link, and would just inquire, not only in terms of why is this person here, but also what am I here to learn from this? In what ways can we be able to grow together, to be able to catalyze one another so that we can transform to our highest way of being? Because that's what we're here to experience, right? Not only to move through our trauma and move through the pain, but then also to enjoy this thing called life. And I really feel that one of the things that perhaps is downplayed or perhaps is not talked about enough is the true joy that is part of this journey, Kevin, right? I feel a tremendous amount of freedom because I have experienced love. And we're not just talking puppy dog love. We're not talking, love from a parent. I'm talking about transcendent love that is truly unconditional, that is 24/7, that is fully embodied, and that leaves me with such ecstasy. And it's interesting because I no longer fear.
Oh, that's big.
Just a really interesting thing. I was thinking about that the other day. It's like, what is it like to be able to move through life where you don't fear fear? And I think I've reached that point where it's sort of like, yeah, it's not that I'm never afraid, but whenever I encounter it, I can be with it. I can look at it objectively. I'm not consumed by it. And then I can allow it to move up and through me. And I realize that it's not something that I'm shrouded by. In fact, it's just information. And I get to choose how I want to be in relationship with that. And so I offer that because I think so many people, are so enraptured by fear, whether it's be something that we're worried about things that we see on the news or things that we worry about for other people, or other people's perceptions. But what would it be like to live in an emancipated state where you don't fear fear, where you actually are guided and flow with love? And that's what I invite folks to be in. And that's what I know is truly available.
Well, in my world, I call that the adventure of a lifetime.
Mm,
Because if you can, if when you get to a point where you are no longer fearful of what's going to happen to you, and then nothing happens to you, you are free to then be able to live a life without restriction,
right.
without fear, and be able to do whatever it is that you choose to do. Give you an example. You had a successful career and you left it to become an entrepreneur and to build your own business. I'm sure that you had people around you that were saying, "Oh, Tiffany, that you've got such a good thing going here. What are you going to go do?" And so that would elicit normally a lot of fear in somebody. But when you've conquered that and you know that it's going to be successful at a very deep level, and it may take time, but you know it's going to work, you lose that fear. Was that your experience?
Oh, yeah. And Kevin, just to be clear, I still encounter that to this day.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. For folks who are not watching this visually, I show up in this body as an Asian American woman. My family is from Hong Kong, very old school Chinese traditional. And they have a very set way of how one should be and act and, move through this world. I chose my teachers well.
Well, you
Right?
did, because I'm sure your mom and dad, if they're both still with us, are like, what are you? They sit around the table when you're
What
not.
are you doing? You know, you're highly educated. You can do so many things. Like you were on this path. You basically had it all made out for you if you just kept walking. Like, what's wrong with you? And the fact of the matter is that, yes, to some degree it was fulfilling, it was checking the boxes, but I wanted more and I wanted to feel more, feel a deeper level of fulfillment that I thought was possible, that intuitively I knew was available, but I didn't know necessarily how. And it was actually by relaxing the judgments that my family had, by relaxing the boxes that I had prescribed for myself, that I found the richness that is available in my everyday. And so for anyone that might incur some like hesitancy to um, let go, like, I gotcha. Like, I see you. I understand you. Like, I know you. Like, it's not like I'm pretending like that doesn't exist. I'm saying it's very real to a certain extent. But what I would offer is that there is the reason why your conscious, your intuition is hungering for more. And I'm here to tell you there is more. And if you allow yourself to be able to be transformed, there's no doing in this, there's no efforting. It's just allowing yourself to be willing to be transformed. And by your intent, you will be.
Now let's get back to your core business, which is working with leadership and
Sure.
creating visionaries amongst us. Because, and I love the premise of it, because
Hmm.
when we're talking about the leadership of a company that's got literally thousands of people,
Yeah.
or hundreds of people,
Yeah.
you can have, through that one contact and that one person, you can change an entire company culture,
Sure.
and how everybody is acting and perceiving, and that can change lives, and very quickly at a big level. Do you find that is exciting about your work?
Oh, totally. Totally. Because, I mean, we're here to change lives at scale. And I'm that MBA part of me that is all about efficiency and effectiveness has not gone away.
But see, you're using that now in a different way, but you had to learn that there to get to here. That make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I love this quote by Albert Einstein. You can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it,
Oh, good point.
right? It just feels like um, I feel like well, I know, right, that many of the leaders, particularly in the business and political world, place like are over indexing on their head knowledge. And again, I'm not saying that that's not important. I'm all about critical thinking and rational thought. But what I find is that folks tend to discount their other ways of knowing, there are ways that their body is speaking to them, the ways that intuitively they are like connected to divine. And when we actually are in gummed up situations like we are in many different places of the world, it actually requires more to be able to solve it. We got ourselves in through our thinking heads. And what I'm offering leaders is actually to be able to elevate and expand their consciousness. So they're not just using their brains, they're using all of their ways of knowing. What is your body telling you? What are the ways that your emotions are informing you? What are you actually receiving from non local insight from the universe? And using that as a way through. Because what got us here won't get us there. And the only way that we're going to see us through this mess is by accessing all of our ways of wisdom so that we can be able to create a new reality that we never thought was possible.
Which is possible, but it does take some work, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
And that's what you're here to guide people through,
Yeah.
is to get through that work, so that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I firmly believe I've been in management and stuff, and I have a unique management style, or did when I was doing that. And what I found was, if I engage everybody and everybody is excited about what we're doing, productivity goes up, our sales performance goes up, everything is positive, turnover goes down, because we're all in it together and we're all working for the same thing, and it's clear what we're all doing.
Yeah.
Why do so many businesses, well, I know why, but I'll ask anyway. Why are there so many businesses that are still operating under that old paradigm when we have proof that it's not as successful?
Um, because they think it's an either or. They
Oh,
think
that's
that,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. They think that we can only achieve success when it looks like undercutting other people. We can only um, uh, create benefit from our shareholders if we, scrimp and save on this end. And the reality is that it's not a. I think the way that we look at things is like through a pie, where it's like if one slice of the pie is gone, that means there's less for others. And that's not how the universe works. The universe works by growing the pie so that there's more for everyone, you know? And the fact of the matter is that we live in an abundant universe. We live with an incredible amount of resources, whether it be on this earth or through other, the wisdom that we receive from spirit. And it's about allowing ourselves to actually believe that there is that abundance that's readily available, and allowing ourselves, it's not an either or, it's about a growing outward. And so when we increase the pie and when we allow ourselves to move into that expansion, more is possible for more people.
I get a big kick out of people that when they think about the law of attraction, or they
Hmm.
think about these energetic topics, and they put it into human perspective. Oh, you mean like money? $1 million would be a lot of money. I could never make $1 million. Are you kidding me? That would be that's out of my realm. Well, guess what? If you believe that, it is. But if you believe that you can do that, you
Yeah.
can. But it takes a certain amount of work, because that doesn't work in our brain. You mean I can have $1 million and not have to work very hard, and it'll be easy and it'll be fun? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And then we look at it from the other side. Our guides are like, it's just energy, it's just money. It has no bearing on anything. You need it, we'll give it to you.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that more people are tuning into that. They're wanting to believe that's true, but they need space to be able to experiment, and they need more embodied examples that this is possible, right? So, by embodied example, what I mean is 15 years ago, we thought that meditation was crazy. We thought that
Yeah.
meditation would never occur in the corporate sphere. And now, Google, Uber, whatever, they have meditation rooms in their conferences. I was speaking to a gentleman who's a recent partner at a very successful, big three accounting firm. Every single one of his cohort with his partners are learning mindfulness. And when they enter into their conference room, everyone puts down their phones and they take a deep breath, and they actually spend 5 minutes and just tune in to themselves and to each other. Who would have thought 15 years ago that's what we would be doing in corporate America? But here we are. And so when people think, oh, it's not possible to talk about spirituality, oh, it's not possible to talk about energy in the workplace, what I'm saying is things are changing. Things are changing quite rapidly. Oh, and by the way, we're doing it now.
We are. It's
Yeah.
exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't you find it to be exciting?
Oh, this is like what it means to be at the tip of innovation, right? And I do believe that, like leaders are always about performance and all about like what's the next edge. if you want to make it and frame it that way, that's fine. But I do believe that energetic awareness, being able to read, sense, take action on energy, is going to be the differentiator for leaders going forward. Those who are able to tap into their intuition, those who are able to go into that flow state, be able to access those different levels of consciousness so that they can have those creative insights, are going to be the leaders that are going to be leading our world. And so those are the folks that I'm empowering now, that are developing greater courage within themselves and bringing this out to their teams.
I was just thinking when you're talking about creating leaders, and we need to create younger leaders now
Hmm.
because our leaders are getting a little long in the tooth, and they've been around a long time. But we need new concepts and new ideas
Yeah.
on how we're going to run the country and run the corporations and stuff. So I applaud your work. I think you have got the potential and of really making huge changes in our culture.
Thank you. Thank you. And, I give gratitude to the leaders who have stepped forward, because embodying this work is not always easy. Being the person who goes first, to look a little weird, to like try the different thing, is a little scary at times. I'll fully acknowledge that. And those folks are actually making shifts now. So, for example, there was a big climate change conference that occurred in Dubai late last year. It was called COP28. And there were a group of leaders who are like, listen, I want to approach this differently. These conferences are a madhouse. I don't know how to be able to ground and center. I want to be at my best, and I want to be able to move through this conference from a different space. I know that when I'm frenzied, I'm not accessing the highest ideas. I'm like not interacting with people at the communal relational level, and I want to do this conference better. And so along with a colleague, I provided meditations, grounding, support to these leaders as they were going through these big global conferences, and we'll continue to do the same throughout the year. So just to let you know, there are all these leaders who do exist. Not only do they look like me of the younger generation, but those who may not necessarily be talking about it, but they are doing the work on their own and also developing the courage to come out more publicly.
Well, and I know that these leaders that you're talking about, you're not allowed to necessarily say who they are unless they give permission ahead of time,
Yeah.
or the companies and stuff, but which is all well and good. So I just want to ask you, in the interactions that you've had, are you encouraged, discouraged? What do you think the future holds for us?
Oh, our future is bright, undoubtedly.
Oh, that was fast.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Bright and joyful and golden. I do believe, much in the same way that you and I, through our personal journeys, had to go through some rocky periods in order to be shaped and transformed, that collectively that is happening now in the collective consciousness. So it's going to be a little rough and tumble. I'm not going to deny that. And I do believe that pain is a catalyst for transformation. So as long as we're willing, and we also have like leaders like yourself who are encouraging people to catalyze that pain and transform it into allowing ourselves to be shaped to be the highest expression of ourselves, the future is golden. I do believe that. And, you had mentioned the younger generation, looking at them, and, I like to look at them like a CPU. It's almost like the technology that they're embodying, the different like hardware that they're coming in with. They're downloading the software in completely different ways, and it's absolutely magical to be able to witness. So not only people of my generation, but people who are just a little bit younger, like they'll knock your socks off. So watch out, world.
Well, they do. I am my nephew. My nephew's like 40, and I asked him one time, we were sitting around having dinner, and he's a computer guy.
Uh-huh.
And I said, so what is it that you actually do for your job?
Sure.
And he said, well, Uncle, I do. And that's the last two words that I recognized. After that, everything else was, huh? I was like a dog with a high-pitched sound. It was like, huh? I don't get it. I don't understand anything. So, but you're right. The kids today, they are being gifted with the next level of where we can be. And by the way, some of the old things, some of the old paradigms that us old folks have been part of for our entire life, including racial issues, sexual issues, all of that, they're going away because they don't care.
No.
They grew up with it all.
They don't care.
It doesn't matter. So I think it's absolutely phenomenal.
And I'm just gonna like tag on that just for a moment. I was pointing to this. We tend to think like when things die or these systems deconstruct, that there's a tremendous amount of fear. And I understand that, it does seem to be, at least with the patterns that I see, is that, you kind of need to let go of 80% in order for the new thing to kind of go through. And that in between space of that deconstruction, which I do believe that we're in right now, can be a little unsteady, right? Because you don't know when the next thing will come. But I tend to think of it like a trapeze. You need to let go of one rung, and then that moment of suspension when you're in the air is both the most exhilarating and also the scariest, right? But invariably, the next thing will come for you to grab on. And so, just recognize that when things are in the process of falling apart, it's not necessarily decay. I would encourage people to perceive it as fertilizer. So when things are dying or deconstructing, it is nutrients for the soil so that new things can be able to grow. And we may not be able to see that right now, but the roots go down deep first before the shoots appear.
And I want to just highlight one thing that you said, which is my favorite word in the entire English language. Early on in this interview, you said the word trust. And trust is a huge thing. And if we trust that we are going to come out of this better than we were before, and that it's all part of the timeline that has been established so that we can do that, then the fear tends to go away, and we can look at it with wondrous anticipation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's programs like yours, Kevin, that are guiding the light, that are providing a pathway for others that they may follow. So hats off to you providing this platform.
Well, it's very humbling, and it's going to continue, and it's going to grow. It's a long time in coming, but it's by divine timing. And it's just the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. Let's get your information out one more time, Tiffany. If somebody wants to contact you, how do they do that?
Yeah, the best way is through my website, www.tiffany, M as in Mary, Chan.com. And there's just a very short form. It'll take 2 seconds and just lets me know who you are and would love to connect with you.
We've got about a minute left. I want you to tell us anything that you'd like us to know.
The future is bright and joyful. Allow yourself to flow with divine love.
That is a t-shirt. So thank you, Tiffany. You are amazing. And I want to thank you for being here.
I'm humbled. Thank you so much.
And you'll have to come back because we have more to talk about. So
I would love to.
And so thank you, everybody, for listening. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We are a production of kmmedia.pro, a full-service media company. Whether it is audio, video, shorts, or longer pieces, we're able to take each project from beginning to final product within your time frame and on budget. Visit kmmedia.pro for more details about us and to get started on your project. We also would like to thank the Brushwood Media Network for all their support. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com to find out more about them and the quality shows featured on the network. Until then, we'll see you next time. My name again is Kevin McDonald, and please remember, Be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.